We are at 6:03. We will give another 2 minutes before we really kick off the meeting. Well, Tias, people are already looking forward to talk to you. And we have people from Ludhiana, Punjab. Nice to have you here, Karanveer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Please use chat to talk and network. It is important that we discuss things in this. Please ask your questions via chat. We would suggest you put in your questions in the chat. And then, in the end, if we do have time, we will also, like if you want to speak, we will try to give you some time to, ask your questions directly. One more minute to go before we start. Hey, Nima from Kochi. Hey, Ashwini from Hyderabad. But you are in US. Thank you for joining so early in the morning. Is the doorbell ringing? Hey, Andy from Bangalore. All right, I think we are at 6:05, so we can get started. Thank you again for people who just joined. I'm Sarandeep. I'm the co-founder of Women in Voice India. We are hosting this meeting in collaboration with the very awesome team at Haptik. And my co-host for today is the awesome Bhagishri. And we have amazing lineup of speakers today. So without taking too much of the time, I will hand it over to Bhagishri to run the show. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. The speakers will, we'll try to answer as many of them as we could. We've also, we had also sent a form initially to get some questions. Those will be addressed first, but please feel free to ask your questions in the chat and we'll be happy to take them. Over to you, Bhagishri. And yeah, looking forward to the session. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sharan. Hi, everyone. I hope you can see me as well as the deck that I'm trying to share. Yeah, so I'll just try and give you an overview of about the whole concept of conducting this event. So while working, we all are working into conversation AI space where we design the bots, we design conversations for various clients to resolve their problems and to deliver some solutions. So while working on it, we observed that there are certain differences in the design process or the perspective towards design, conversation design, and the overall user experience of the chatbot. This is a bit different than the international clients. When we deal with Indian clients, this perspective of accepting the bot and looking at the bot, the expectations of the whole process is a little different. So here we are now to discuss a lot more on conversation design that is happening in India and the challenges that we all face while designing the bot and how to deal with it. And are there any tricks and tips? Is there any hack that we can try and deliver a good user experience to the customers in India? Let's get started. Okay. So here we have Avni from Haptik. We have Tias from Skit.ai. And we also have Minu from Amelia. Why don't you guys introduce yourself, Avni?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Bhagishri, for introducing me. I'm Avni. I've been a haptic for about 3 years now. And my journey as a conversation designer has been very exciting, to be honest. I don't come from a tech background, so I basically undergraduated as a fashion student. And then I moved on to studying design thinking as my master's, which is when I got introduced to this whole space of UI, UX, and also chatbots. And I'm really grateful to that professor even today who told me to go interview at Haptic, because when I'd gone to Haptic, I actually went to interview as a UX designer. But when I reached there, they introduced me to the space of conversation design, and I'm so thankful for that, because this journey has been so grateful, fulfilling, and satisfying as a designer. With all the work that we are currently doing with Geomart specifically, and then collaborating with the Meta team, I really now have a vision of what conversation design is and what it holds in the future, the importance of it. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys, all the little learnings, insights that I've learned today. And I'm also looking forward to hear from everybody else, also Tias, Meenu, Anjali. So yeah, thank you for having me, Bhagashri.
Yeah, thank you so much, Avni. So good to have you. Tias, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, Bhagyasri. First of all, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. I think everyone on the call is aware what we are planning to do today. So thank you so much for that. And I think I have a lot of similarities with Avni, who just, mentioned one thing, that they do not come from a tech background. Same with me. I do not come from a tech background. I'm a literature student. I graduated as a literature student. And after that, I got into the space of UX design. So when I got into design, I thought that, dude, I'm missing out on writing. I'm missing out on language. Where do I get that? Right. And again, I think mentorship is very important. Like Avni has also gotten a professor. I got a person who was in the space of UX at that point of time. And he kind of mentored me, saying that you want to write and you know UX. Why don't you just put the hands together, right? And that's when my journey started back in 2017. So I have been designing chatbots and for multiple platforms, and then gradually a couple of skills on voice as well. And then like the current stint that I am in is at Skit. I am a part of Skit from 2020. I just completed 2 years, couple of months back. And yeah, so here I have been designing for voice, and I have been helping enabling multiple voice related automation and design. And I think I would be able to share whatever I have learned, because this is an ever evolving domain, right? And there is no strict path to it, and it's an open forum. I call it an open forum. You can learn from anywhere. It's almost like talking about Ranchor Das Chachar, who said that bacha gyan bat raha hai, just you can get it from anywhere. So that's what you observe, and that's how you do. So I'm just hoping I can talk about all of that. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. We are so glad to have you, Tias. Thank you so much. Uh, and we also have Minu from Amelia. Hi, Minu.
Hi, yeah. So I am Minu Sarah Paul. I work at Amelia, the Bangalore division. I am the conversation design lead there. Like I think the both of them, I also chanced upon this profession. I actually didn't know that this field existed before I actually ventured into this, and I mean I'm so glad I did. So I did my master's in linguistics, and then I went on to do a PhD in audiovisual translation, and it's very odd, but I don't know, audiovisual translation, I worked on subtitles extensively, and this the short and crisp way we have to deal with conversation designing as well, that's got a lot of similarity with subtitling as well, I feel. And I was very happy that I I mean, I got this job and I started writing, and it's amazing, right? And collaborate with people, like-minded people. That's been amazing, and that's what I look forward to doing here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have various backgrounds of people who are working into this space. People come from literature, people come from UX background, and there are some people who come from technical background. It's conversation design space is so welcoming and accommodative. So we sent out this pre-registration form on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and we received that conversation designers in India are facing a lot of challenges into these all areas. They want to know about what is a better channel, chat or voice. They want to know about what could be the best bot response, what are good policies, what could be the effective portfolio for me if I'm a new person into this space. What is important? Is storytelling important? All these challenges. So what we did, we collated all these questions, and we have now allocated all these questions to. We are going to ask these questions to these experts, and let's know what are these tricks and what do these experts do while designing the conversation. So Tias, for you, this is the first question.
Yes.
If I'm a new person, how can I build an effective portfolio? If I'm not currently working on conversation design, what are the great tips from you?
Sure, sure. I'd like to take a stab at it. So, as I was saying, right, this is a domain which is kind of an open forum, right? You can learn from anywhere and everywhere. So, I think before you start to take a career in conversation design, you just know which part you like in conversation design, right? Let's say designing the UX part, the journey mapping and everything from fallbacks to recovery to handling of edge cases is one part. That is the design part. The other part is the writing, or how your consumer faced writing is catering to the people that you're writing for. So these two things are, I feel, are major things to keep in mind or to choose from, let's say. So I personally would prefer to depict my portfolio in a way which shows which angle of these two things I prefer or I can work on better or are my forte, I would say, right? And even if you're coming from any other background, even if you're coming from, let's say, as we just learned, we are all from different backgrounds. Let's say, even if you're not remotely even connected to conversation design anywhere, just try to identify this one path which you can show some value on, or which you think you can add some value on, right? So first, once you orient yourself towards that, you can orient your portfolio to show this the upper hand, basically, right? And between these two things, any of it could actually take the upper hand and is acceptable, is what I believe, right? So let's just start as an ABC. If I have to tell you, I think when you're creating a portfolio, you call yourself a conversation designer. We feel this imposter syndrome that, okay, I have never worked with a conversation. Should I even call myself that? I feel you should call yourself that if you want to, because the person who is reviewing does not know ABCs about you, right? The only proof of your recognition is there in their hand through your CV or your portfolio. So definitely start with calling yourself a conversation designer and mention the major skills that you're part of. Now you will tell me that, how will I gain these skills? Again, open forum. There are so many books. And I personally read only books initially, right? And they gave a lot of, it's like a grammar book. It's like what to do and not to do, right? And that kind of helps a lot. So read the books. There are certain free courses online that you can find, let's say in Udemy or LinkedIn Learning. Go ahead and do that if you don't want to spend money, because Voice Tech Global or Conversation Design Institute, these are paid courses, so you might not be ready for that at once. So just go ahead and try the free courses that are there online, and if you really research, you will find a lot of them. That then try to find what other people are doing. There are a lot of scope where you can see what these brands are automating. Let's say HDFC Bank, for example, the EVA bot is so, like, we have it for so long, right? Is one of the pioneers, I would say. So go and see the experience over there. At least learn the subject. You don't have to be an expert in the subject to build your first portfolio. So that's your base setup, according to me. Then I think your portfolio should be in a website format, right? You want to give it a format which is easily navigatable. And you want to give that leverage. You don't want to constrict the viewer, right? You want to give the leverage to the person who is viewing it. You're just taking them through slides, might not be the brightest experience, but you give them a website and wow them with multiple segments and fill that up, might add a lot of value, I believe, right? So a major chunk of your portfolio can go in case studies, because case studies are where you show the value that you can add. So in case studies, I would say that, inclination towards, again, the one of these two, the writing part or the UX part, should be very much visible. Some bit of UX you need to still follow. And as I said, that there are, again, a lot of resources online, Don Norman's, everything is online, right? You can learn about heuristics, you can learn about UX processes. So try to step-by-step categorize it in a way where you're talking about requirement gathering, research, then coming up with an information architecture, then coming up with a user journey mapping, then writing your prompts or designing your conversation. Build it in a step-by-step manner, and you try to show your decision-making process in every step, why you did what you did, right? So try to formulate it in a way, don't go or don't shoot for stars right away, because you're just starting up. And if people know that you're a fresher in conversation design field, they will consider that. It's not expected that an expert design will suddenly come out of you. So just try to focus on the basics and try to take simpler use cases which are impactful. Let's say a order tracking scenario. It is an impactful case for a business, and you really want to show how easily you're helping the user in a minute few steps to get their order tracked, right? So that value that you're adding makes more sense in your case study. And again, while designing your case studies, you can take two approaches, I believe. One could be, sorry, was there anything? Can I continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I thought somebody spoke. Sorry. Yeah. So I was saying that let's say while doing the case studies, you can take two approaches, right? One could be that you have identified a particular format and you want format of conversation design, and you want to apply to companies that deal in those, like chat, let's say. There are other channels also, chat, voice, multimodal, push notification or SMS trigger, right? Or IVR design. These are different kinds of conversation design. So if you are orienting yourself to, apply for a particular part of conversation design in any of these, your case study should talk about that. That is one approach, right? Second approach could be, I want to do it all. I am okay with any kind of conversation design, right? Then create, I think, more than 2 case studies, which can cater to at least 3 different channels like this: chat, voice, multimodal, and things like that, right? So the complete design nuances should be adhering to this channel that you're choosing. One tiny example, let's say you're showcasing a case study, which is a chatbot or a chat automation, right? You would want to show the placement of your emojis and the reasoning or the thought process behind it, right? If you're using emojis, talk about why you are using emojis. If you're not using emojis, talk about why you are not using emojis. If you're using buttons or, let's say, carousel cards, for Messenger, we use a lot of carousel cards, right? So just specify why this kind of a representation was chosen in the first place, right? So all these things come out from the channel selection part. Similarly with voice, you can't really show the visual part of things. So what you do, you try to intonate your prompts in a better way. That from when text to speech is happening, let's say, and you have these speech markup languages, SSML tags we call it, right? So you want to increase or decrease the prosody and make it more human in nature, or more catering to the user group that you're targeting, right? So these kind of nuances you need to keep in mind when you're dealing with particular channels, right? I think apart from case studies, the other segment that can still add something about your overall experience, you will be like, let's say you're coming from a UX writing background, or you're coming from a content writing, technical writing background, and you'll be like, okay, all these years of work will go nowhere. The best possible way to represent that could be your resources section. Create a resources section in your website, right? There you can show that these are some of the different processes that I've worked on. These are some of my published papers. These are some of the things that I have been adhering to or connected to, this is a dummy project that I have created, right? So all these things can go into your resources, and your case studies part can see the complete design life cycle, I would say, at the end, accompanied by a particular prototype that you would want to use, right? So all these segments, when you have done, the closure part or the conclusion could be how, as a designer, you think. So you could just add certain segments or certain pointers on your design thinking approaches. That if this is the audience, this is the geography, this is the language I'm catering to, these are the design decisions that I would be making to give them an overall general approach, right? So I think conversation design first cut portfolio is something that is subject to a lot of experimentation, right?
Yes.
And it's beautiful, I believe. So just go ahead, guys. If you want to build your first portfolio, just go ahead and build it, because once you start, a lot of things will start appearing in your head, which might not be, once you're theoretically just thinking about it, might not come to you right away. So yeah, I think Bhagyashri, this would be my take on it.
Yeah, definitely. This is very insightful, Tias, I must say. Anjali, hey, hi, Anjali.
Hi,
You
Bhagyashree. Hi.
there? Hey, hi. So why don't you introduce yourself and let us know your take on this?
Sure,
Can we
sure.
see you? Can you turn the video on?
There is something really wrong with my camera. I'm really sorry. That's why.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, okay. Also, I'm on my cellular data, so if you cannot hear me, if there's a lag, please do let me know.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, all right. So first of all, I do want to extend my thanks to you, Bhagyashree, for allowing me to speak today. And I'm so thrilled to be here with, all these wonderful people, because I'm not just here to listen and to learn from my peers, but I'd also like to, and I hope to, kind of provide some sort of insights from my own journey to, all these budding conversation designers of today. A little bit about myself. I come from an engineering background. So I did my BTech in electronics and communication, which has nothing to do with conversation design. And I started my career by being a business analyst. And then I worked my way up to project management. And then I did, so that was in the mobile application space. And then I shifted to the conversational AI space, but I was a project manager there. And for the longest time, while I was managing projects, I kept focusing on the quality and the user experience part. And I really did not like, the whole just delivering projects and managing on a daily basis. So I just took a leap of faith. I spoke to my manager, and I did speak to the only other conversation designer I knew. And I learned a few things, and then I did some research on my own. And then I think the management or the company that I worked for earlier, they were just so nice to kind of allow me to go into this role. And it just fit right in. And then I shifted to Yellow. And I've been here for almost a year.
Nice. Wonderful. So nice to have you, Anjali. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm sure we are going to take away a lot from your experience as well. So, Anjali, this question is to you as well. We would like to know for a new person who is joining conversation design space, what is your take on building an effective portfolio for them?
Right. Right. So I did listen to what Dia said, and I completely agree with her. I don't want to repeat the same points. I think I'd like to add a few things. So I guess if you're trying to get your foot in the door, I think you need to evaluate your existing skill set and see how you can leverage them into transitioning into this world of conversation design. And the way I look at it, and honestly, this comes from my recruitment tales, there are some innate traits or skills that a potential candidate needs to possess. And then there are other skills that can be taught to them, right? Either by a team lead or their peers, or what they can learn through their, own journeys. So I would put them into two buckets. One would be essential skills or must-haves, and then the other one would be nice to have skills, right? So if you talk about essential skills, I think logical analysis or thinking, creativity, user-centric thinking, and then obviously effective communication, right? So these are must-haves, right? So, but how do you, at the end of the day, showcase this when you're trying to, apply for a conversation designer role? So logical thinking, I would say if you have experience in, creating flowcharts, or if you can design one on your own and show how you have optimized it, I think that kind of shows. Creativity or creative writing, if you do come from maybe, let's say, a content writing background, or UX writing background, or maybe you write articles or maybe blogs as like a side hobby. I think showcasing these kind of links would allow the recruiter to really understand your creative sense. User-centric thinking, I guess this could be highlighted if you have previous exposure to working for any sort of software solutions, like that caters to end users out there. So this is where I think I was lucky, because all of my projects, because being a business analyst and a project manager, I had to really keep the user in mind. So all of my projects fit in, and they were relevant to the job that I was applying for. Next is effective communication. Initially in your initial screening round, I think recruiters would probably spend like a minute or so, just kind of glancing over your resume or portfolio or anything. So you have to really, make a point there. You can't just ramble on about all the different projects that you've worked on. So you really have to highlight, in your cover letter or in your LinkedIn description or your resume, the ability to be an effective communicator by really just getting to the point, right? And I think freelance work is also quite desirable now, because if you have freelance opportunities, experience from the past, I know oftentimes, especially in India, it's still it's still new. Not a lot of recruiters are open to considering that experience, but I think it really should be included, because if you have freelance experience, it's a really good way to kind of underscore your ability to forge and establish relationships with customers, and be a very important individual contributor to a much larger business goal. So these are the essential skills. The other one was nice to have skills. So those are kind of like the basic conversation design guidelines. Again, there's tons of resources out there online. You can even go through Kathy Pearl's Medium blogs, her videos on YouTube. Google has its own conversation design guidelines. So you can go through that, but even if you don't have just, if you have elementary knowledge, it's okay. If you have any work or experience with some sort of design tools, that could be made, use of when you're actually working as a conversation designer, right? So Lucid, Chart, Draw.io, things like that. That's a nice skill to have, to highlight in your resume. Cross-functional team experience. That's something that is nice to have, because at the end of the day, just like if you talk about my teams, we tend to interact with pre-sales folks, clients, business analysts, QA teams, developers. So cross-functional team experience is good as well. And then each company has their own implementation journey, the way, the kind of processes that they follow in order to, create and deliver this conversational AI agent. So, I mean, if you come from a similar background or if you're aware of it, then I think it's a nice skill to have. And obviously all of this is going to be reflected in your resume and portfolio. And I think there's something that I have in common with Tia's, what she mentioned. So that's about the kind of conversation designer you want to be, right? So I think all this really does depend on the kind of team you want to be a part of. And I say this because a while ago, I had the opportunity to speak with the COO of Conversation Design Institute. So he kind of opened my eyes and he described, how he envisions an ideal conversation design team to look like. So he said there would be someone who takes care of the actual architecture, optimization, of the flow. Somebody who then takes care of the copywriting that has to be persona aligned. And then there's, the AI trainer or the consultant who kind of, leverages conversational analytics and then drives insights from them and then takes it back to the team and says, hey, this is the way we have been designing a certain, a flow, but, this is probably what we should do. We should change it. So what I'm trying to say is try and think of what kind of a designer you want to be, and then see what kind of skills you could probably highlight to match these individual conversation design team. There's also, I think Tias also spoke about this, creating your own portfolio. So self-initiated projects. So if you really don't have any actual experience that you can highlight in your resume, maybe create one, right? So Draw.io, those kind of tools are very easy to use. So if you can just pick up a use case, very simple use case, if you can show your design thinking, journey mapping, optimize it, and if you can kind of have a short description as to what your understanding is of the business objectives and the goals, and how that is perfectly captured in your design, what your understanding of the target user is, and how did you kind of define the bot persona, and how are you kind of reflecting that in your design? I think if you go the extra mile and sort of create these sample projects yourself and add that to your portfolio, I think I think the potential employers would be really, really interested and intrigued.
Yeah, that's very insightful, Anjali. Thank you so much for sharing your points as well. Yeah, so Minu, yeah, so just one thing in the interest of time, let's just keep 5 to 7 minutes for each question, so that we cover all the questions and we all have answers to the important questions that we already have in our minds. I'm sure these are questions where we want to speak a lot, but let's in the interest of time, let's keep it short. Cool. Meenu, what do you think is how to design a graceful the graceful bot responses for error handling cases? So by error handling cases, we also consider the edge cases, or when the path is not very happy path, and there are some problems in the there could be some technical problem, server error, API is not working, something of that sort. How to design these responses in such a scenario?
Yeah, so this is a great question because along with designing the happy path, we as conversation designers, we are also we also need to handle the other side of things, which is when things go wrong, right? And us as human beings, we'll be able to come up with on the spot responses. But for conversational AI, we will need to teach them upfront as to what needs to be said and when that needs to be said specifically. So we also need to keep in mind that there couldn't always be one solution for the different channels we are designing it for. So for voice, we might handle a particular error in a way, and for chat, we might handle it differently. So the main question here is, before I even try to answer this question, what do we identify as errors? It could be multiple things, multiple scenarios. For instance, take a voice scenario. Um, so at the beginning of a conversation, the conversational AI might ask, "What can I help you with?" And there is a good possibility that the person at the end of the call is not saying anything. So at that point, how do we expect the bot to respond, right? So here, of course, we want to give them the benefit of doubt. They might not have heard the question, so we cannot just go on and cut the call, right? That's not graceful, and that's not human like as well, right? And we are aiming to be conversational AI, so we need to be as close to humans as possible. So when you do not hear anything, the first thing would be to wait for 3 to 4 seconds and then repeat the question. But repeating the question, I do not mean the exact same words. What can I help you with? What can I help you with? That doesn't sound nice. So us as human beings, we will also change up the wordings a little bit. So we could explain the situation. So we could, for instance, say, "I don't think I heard you there. How can I assist you today?" So if they haven't been able to speak, they could speak at this point of time. And now again, if you do not get a response, then you need to think of other ways in which you can handle it. So what I do is give them information as to what they can do instead of speaking with the conversational AI at that point of time. So this is a voice scenario. We could give them an email ID or direct them to a chat and say that, you can also reach out to me here, or the company there. Give them an email ID, give them a chat ID, or we can always ask them to call back when they're ready with the question, right? That's also one way of handling it. This is a scenario where you do not even know the intention of the user, right? We do not know the intent. The CAI, the conversational AI, doesn't know what the user's intention is. Now you have cases where you've already started the conversation. That's where we already know the intent, but in the middle of the conversation, you do not know what's happening. So it's not progressing along the happy path. So let's say there is a scenario where you are expecting the person to give you some crucial information. For instance, they're calling to renew their insurance, and we need the policy data, and without which we cannot proceed, right? So one way to handle this is to tell them that, this information is crucial and I need it to progress. But we can also make it more user friendly by telling them where to find this information. So if they say, "I don't know where my policy number is," you can tell them where it is. So uh, yeah, so by that we will you know deroute them to reroute them to the happy path. So that is one way of dealing with that sort of an error. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
uh, yeah.
yeah, this is a great idea to reroute them to a happy path in a graceful way, in a way that the bot sounds helpful at the same time.
Yeah, and another error can occur right at the beginning of this conversational AI, the conversation, right, where uh, the conversational AI could actually understand the intent wrongly. um, and this is where us as CEDs, we need to be super careful. So we need to design instances where someone could exit the conversation gracefully as well, so they do not have to go through the entirety of the conversation before exiting and taking a different turn. So we can avoid this by making a very small change, or by making a very very simple thing, like getting confirmation done at the very beginning. So if I say that I want to renew my policy, you could just say, you want me to help you renew your insurance, right? And if they give you an affirmative progress.
Right.
Otherwise, yeah. So with that, you are, saving a lot of time, and the user experience is good enough.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and that's why we're still handling the error and hopefully containing it as well.
Right, right,
And
right.
and sorry, Bhagyashree, do you want to add something?
No, I was just asserting to what you are saying. Yeah, this is definitely helpful. Um, uh, can I, Tias, can you also share your inputs on this?
Yeah, sure. I think Minu covered a lot of it, right? So I'll take it from there so that in the interest of time we are able to close it also, right? So what Minu was trying to say, I think I'll take it from there because I also divide these errors in the type of the errors. I
Hmm.
call them user initiated error, bot initiated error, and situational error. Now, what is a bot initiated error, right? So I think all of that Minu has already mentioned, but I would still like to pick up on 2 3 things. Let's say that your particular bot or your particular chatbot is semantic based. Let's say semantic based in case of chat and ASR based in case of voice. So something is not easily identified or the bot went to a different route, right?
Hmm.
So how to bring them back? Because you don't really want to lose out on a customer. Now,
Hmm.
it can be a true, confusion, I would say, or can be a false capture in itself.
Hmm.
So I think while error handling is being thought about, it's a matter of collaboration with your ML counterpart also, the machine learning team or the NLP team that you're working on, because they can help you set the confidence threshold, let's say, right? Beyond which you will probably ask for a confirmation, below which you will probably go ahead with what you were doing, let's say, like that, something of that sort. So
Hmm.
bot initiated problems or bot initiated errors could be always designed for with the intent of the persona that you're depicting as well. For example, you're designing for voice, right? And you need to give a bigger example or a bigger information, but you know that in this information there are jargons, or in this information there can be follow-up questions, right? Let's say
Yeah.
something like okay, your appointment is booked and you can expect the technician to visit your place.
Hmm.
But what if somebody asks, okay, what will be the charges? Have
Hmm.
you thought of that? So that is also an error handling case. So
Got it.
think about from a user's perspective, what are the things that you would do if a
Hmm.
incomplete information comes to you? So you
Hmm.
expand them and you have that. And you don't generally constrict users if you have a leverage of cross flow transitions, right? Like from at the end of one flow, if a user wants to just directly digress, you want to digress, help them, and then come back to your flow. You
Hmm.
don't not want to help them, right? But also limit your arena, because users tend to digress. At least Indian audience tend to
Yeah.
digress. We love speaking, right? All of us love speaking, so we tend to digress a lot. Your focus should be, I will digress, I will help them, but I'll also limit that. If you see continuously people are digressing, you put a counter logic over there,
Right. Yes.
right? And you stop it at some point, maybe 2 turns you are allowing,
Hmm.
right? Or let's say there is an API failure, as very rightly mentioned by Bhagyesh. You give them a way out. You never not want to help them, right?
Hmm.
You give them the next possible way out. If you are on voice, you can probably go ahead and schedule a callback. If you are on chat, you can probably direct them, giving a link to a website or an app that they can download and get the information, right?
Yeah.
So multimodal capability helps a
Hmm.
lot in error handling, I would say. If you don't have the leverage of multimodal, then try
Hmm.
to see how you can stop the user initiated actions. Let's say you, like when you say that, okay, I can't help you with that, please call us back in some time. If a API failure happens,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
don't know the user will call back,
Correct. Correct.
right? You don't know, and you might lose out on that lead or lose out on that user. So you
Yeah.
want to bring them back to track by telling them, all right, I will call you back in some time to
Yeah.
help you with this. In the meantime, you can maybe look at our website.
Hmm. We
So
have yeah,
yeah,
sorry. So we
no,
have
yeah,
Chitra. She has a question. Chitra, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question?
sure.
Hi, Chitra. Okay, maybe when you come back. Please unmute yourself and ask the question that you have. She has a question related to metrics of error handling. We'll wait for her to come back and ask the question. Cool. Avni, what do you think are the engagement techniques that would work for Indian users, and what are the different challenges that you faced while working with or for the Indian user base, and how did you tackle them?
Hi, this is a very interesting question, Bhagishri, and I think a part of this, a lot of insights were shared by TS and Minu already in the previous question. So I'll just take it from there. I think one thing that TS mentioned about is that think of the end user. So as conversation designers, we only focus on, or we are expected to focus more on the copies and everything else. But to know what kind of copies you want to design, you have to understand your user. So really try and look at who your target audience is. Ask these questions to the business who have come in for a requirement or a problem that they're trying to solve. Who is their end user? What is their age group? What is the demography of that user? Are they tech savvy? Do they know English? What is their first language? I think this will help you kind of understand the tone of voice that you're going to have to build those copies also, right? I think that sets a very strong base for you as a designer to even design that experience, not just your copy. So I think that is the first step that you start with, by understanding a user. And I think as designers, we are expected to put that emphasis on the user persona, because that is kind of skipped out from just the whole project life cycle, right? So we have to bring it back to attention. We have to tell them that, let's just first understand your user. So you create one or ask your business to provide one for you. Either ways, do it as a very important step for your project. I think after that, you also have to focus on, designing for quick adoption. Like I said, we don't know who your users are. So don't think or assume things that because you know it, that your users will also know it. No, think of it from a very layman perspective. Design your copy so micro and so easy to read that will lead to better adoption. Right. And I think, today, because we are surrounded by technology so much, I don't think there's a need for reinventing a wheel. I think we should just leverage the fact that there's a very strong base mental model set for a lot of users for a lot of things. So use that in your copies. Don't try and make it so fancy that, your user is just completely lost. That will in fact lead to drop off. So think of it from a perspective where, use simple language, but also see if it is getting adopted as quickly as possible or not. And I think when we are also designing, think of your parents as users. That's just the most easiest way to look at it, because my parents, they know how to read English. Probably they don't know how to speak it. So even focus on that, or focus on your parents, focus on people around you, like your house help, right? Like, I think whenever I'm designing stuff, I also want to make sure that I design for multiple regional languages. Like, that is a very important technique to be more inclusive in your experience, right? So give that option for having to choose from not just English as a language, but Hindi or Marathi or whatever audience that you're designing for. So being inclusive, I think, is again very, very important today when we are designing any type of an experience. And now, because we've talked about user persona, equally bot persona is also important, right? To be more engaging for your user. Don't just make it very transactional and robotic. And that is not what a lot of business want also today. I think a lot of businesses are trying to explore that engaging side of technology, where how much more engaging can I be with my gender, with my name, or that will set a base for your small talk also, apart from your happy flow or the requirement that you're solving for. Let's take WhatsApp as an example, right? Like when a user is chatting on WhatsApp, because it's already a medium for you to talk to your friends or your family, so they're so familiar with it. So that having a strong bot persona will make your small talk also more stronger. Let's say if a user is just writing, who are you? So my bot should not break at that point. It should give a response that is as engaging, like, hey, my name is so and so, and I'm here to help you with these menu items. And then on, bring that user to your experience or to the use case that you're trying to solve for. So right, like user persona, bot persona, equally important. And certain tips and tricks that you can take care of is one is add a lot of emojis. I think because we focus so much on the copy, we forget that there are emojis that we can use, that will just bring a smile to your user's face, that, oh, this is just like talking to a friend. Take this as a takeaway from all of us, I think on the panel, we all agree, just make use of emojis and push for it, because a lot of businesses don't want to do that. And that kind of is sad, because it is so boring to just look at text and copies. Make use of emojis. It's so important.
Yeah, exactly. So, did you face any challenges while working for the Indian user base?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that. Actually, I was coming to that in my next point, right? I think once you've done your design, go back to looking at the analytics, right? To understand what your bot is doing, how it is performing, what is the behavior, what is the user behavior. Just take certain data-driven decisions from then on to kind of solve for issues after you've gone live, right? One thing that I think we noticed very early on once we went live was that on WhatsApp specifically, people are very used to chatting with the bot in English as a language, which we did not cater for, right? Because English is the first language that we first solved for. Probably Hindi we'll do, but English we completely overlooked. So that was one of the big challenge that we kind of brought towards the product team also, to kind of make a model that we could train our system to even recognize English. And then from then on, you can choose to at least respond in whatever language you are capable for. Like you choose English as a response or choose Hindi, but at least identify what the copy is that the user is writing, because English again is a very common chat language these days, at least on WhatsApp. So I think that was one challenge that we faced and we tried to solve for.
Yeah, I think this is true for a lot of Indian languages. For Marathi, so I'm a Marathi speaker. While typing Marathi, also I hardly use Devanagari. I mostly use Roman script, and that's Minglish probably, as they say. But whatever. So this combination, this is a very important point, Avni. Thanks for bringing that up.
Sure. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, why is it not moving? Okay. Yeah. So Anjali, this question is to you first. How do we explain conversation design experience to our clients, and what are the tricks and tips that could be used to effectively explain your conversation experience design to the client?
Right. So I think first and foremost, you need to kind of really get to know your client first in the initial few calls in the discovery stage itself, because there are a lot of different types of clients. They're tech savvy, non-tech savvy. Some of them come with in-depth knowledge of conversation design. Some of them have no idea what it is about. Even if you try and explain it to them, they really do not care. And then some of them have like a vague idea, but they're interested to know more, and they look up to you as experts, right? So in that case, I think you need to, that's probably the starting point. So where exactly do you need to start from, right? Because if you're talking to experts and you're going to give like an hour-long workshop, starting from the basics, it's not going to be useful. So I would still say stick to what the basics are. What exactly is conversation design in a nutshell? But then kind of bring it back to the kind of business objectives or their business solutions, right? Or problems that you're trying to address through your design. While showcasing your design, quite recently, actually, this happened to one of my team members. So we had a non-tech savvy client, and who was, who didn't really know much about conversation design, didn't even know much about, flow charts or journey mapping. And it was a really complex healthcare solutions, use case. So what we did is we had all of the 2-3 long or complex journeys mapped out. And because we were running short of time and the client was kind of on leave in between, we were trying to showcase everything at once. And there were a lot of people in the team. And I think what happened there is the client kind of looked at the journey and the script and everything together as a whole and started wondering, okay, why is it so complex? So the client did not understand, okay, how is this conversation design? How is it going to look for, look like for the end user. So we had to figure out a way to kind of take away the complexity of the design and tech part of it, and only showcase to them what are we trying to build for only the end user? What does it look like to the end user? So what we did there is kind of take it step by step, use case by use case.
Right.
On call, what we did is kind of did a little bit of role playing where one person would, because it was for voice. So we would, one person would act like the bot, the other person would act like the end user. And when we read it out, just a happy path, the person kind of, or the client, quickly grabbed onto that. And then it was just an easy way to start off. And then for, clients who are, or don't shy away from looking at detailed, designs and copywriting or flowcharts, what we try to do there is, we share our screens, we send it across, and we take it journey by journey. And then because they kind of understand the high level flow, they understand where the data points are, added, what we're trying to capture. But at the end of the day, they don't understand the hidden aspects of your design. So just for an example, I'm going to take the simplest example, actually, FAQs. We get a lot of FAQ bots, and we often rely on the client for their set of FAQs. And what we get is sheets and sheets of, very verbose, questions, which contain mostly relevant things, but some, even we can just look at and we're like, no, we need to cut down on it. But they're not willing to, do that. And so we're trying to employ the Jenga technique there and sort of retain the context, but, cut away all of which is not necessary for user. So those kind of things, if you try and tell them upfront, it's not going to register. You would kind of maybe in your demo stage, or you can just take a sample of something that you've done earlier and show it to them then and there. And I think that's really easy to get through to them that way.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I had faced a similar situation once. Yeah. Tias, what do you say about it? What is the best way to explain your design to the client?
Sure, Bhagyashree. So basically, I totally agree with what Anjali also mentioned, right? To me, I would give one very regular example, right? Think of any Indian consumer, right? Think of any Indian consumer. Do we still prefer going to the mall and shopping, or do we still prefer online shopping? So all of us somewhere rely on look and feel of things. And that is what you would get in your Indian clients also. Right? And that's the logic, guys. That's the simple logic. Everyone wants to see, as Anjali mentioned, everyone wants to see what it looks like or how it will feel, how it will actually, come out to be. So one, if you have a good, very supportive person from the client's team, get yourself introduced, come up front and get yourself introduced and make them over the process, make them familiarize with your process. Right? Until and unless you do that, they will always be in this mysterious zone ki what is happening, right? So be in all inception calls and the calls that follow afterwards with your tag along with your project manager or whoever is the spokesperson, stakeholders over there, right? So just be there, be a visible face. So your customer knows that is you and you are owner of design. And you can even conduct workshops also, as very well mentioned by Anjali. I think workshops are very important. Even if you don't get the time for workshops, just create a bulleted list of steps that you would be following, right? The first could be orientation of the use case that you are dealing with, the problem part. Next could be the research. Mention research, right? Because research in any kind of design field is very, very important, right? What is building the domain knowledge for you? Let's say you are a conversation designer, you are an SME in copywriting and UX, but you are not an SME in stock brokerage or insurance, right? So research plays a very huge part. And when you show that, you tell them that, dude, I am learning about your industry. I am giving it that importance, right? So that becomes very important. That's one point. Next, definitely use, prototyping tools or anything that can easily depict your design. Generally, for conversational flows, it's flowchart, like draw.io, as mentioned by Anjali also. But imagine a vast use case. You won't be able to do justice to all of it if you just send it to them. You want to divide them into sub flows, let's say, or you want to divide them into shorter user journeys from end to end. And you can even put dummy conversations in that to give them a look and feel. If they are still not able to understand, then just create prototypes using, let's say, botmock, bot society for chat, and let's say fable.io, or anything voice flow for voice, right? So these help you create very easy and plug and play kind of prototypes. You can give them these demos which can sound like the actual example of a bot conversation, whereas it's just a recorded conversation. Right, as Anjali also mentioned, play the part of a user and a bot, or maybe if you have TTS inbuilt, use the TTS for the bot part, use your voice, your own voice as the user part, and you try to show positive, negative edge case handling, playbacks of returning to the track, all of these things through tiny 3-4 minutes ke videos, right? And that creates a lot of impact. I think everyone wants to see, because people are still getting used to understanding the AI space, right? A lot of things are confused even within the customers, that whether this is a machine learning thing or this is a conversation design thing, right? You don't have to segregate that in their head. You can't train them. What you can do, give them the look and feel and do justice to it. Because if you over preach and you can't deliver that, that is going to be a problem as well. So when you're sharing any demos or prototypes, keep it true to what you can actually deliver and show all the possible cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Minu, what do you say about showcasing your conversation design to the customers or clients?
Yeah, I think most of the points Anjali and Tias they've covered, but I just want to emphasize on one point. I just cannot emphasize more on setting the expectation right with the clients, because some of them come in with an understanding they have from the movies, right? Some of them think that every CAI, the conversational AI, is already like Jarvis from Marvel Cinematic Universe, or it's there's Samantha from Her, the movie. So the first step is to make them understand that if it's not in the design, the conversational AI is probably not going to say it, right? So this is very crucial. And maybe we will have, for instance, Emilia, she has some built-in capabilities where she will respond to certain social talk and all of that, which are editable. But if it's your domain, you need to teach it to the bot. Otherwise, the bot is not going to say it, and we are not industry experts. So if you need facts or your industry related information, you need to give it to us. We are conversational designers, we're not experts of the field. And I mean, I do most of my designing, not most, I do my designing on Lucidchart. So there is always a first draft that I do. I walk them through walk the clients through the design completely, and at each juncture I'm going to tell them what the bot is going to say, right? So this gives them a clear understanding of the conversation itself. And for first time clients, it sometimes it gives them an understanding of how the conversation is going to progress. So I'm talking about pre-demo stage. So this is the very basic. So yeah, so drill into them the idea that the conversational AI will only be able to say what we teach it to say, and it will not magically weave conversation and uh, you know uh, have opinions about certain things like a human being would.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yes,
yeah.
yes. On point. Setting the right expectations. And of course, as Tias and Anjali, they both mentioned preparation is the most important as well. So, Anjali, what do you think is the most valuable skill in conversation design? Is it storytelling? Is it language accuracy? What do you think it is? And what are the recommended tools for designing, uh, in your opinion? And is it same for chat, voice, and multimodal? What is it?
Okay, I'll start with the most important skills. I think it's a little difficult to call out any one particular skill, but aside from the very obvious, logical or creative thinking, I think I'd like to give the spotlight to adaptability. because it's a trait that would really help you set apart and, kind of rise to the top. And I say this because I think somebody mentioned this at the very beginning of the call. All of us come from very different backgrounds, right? And even my team, right? We have psychologists, we have engineers, we have graphic designers, we have English teachers, or journalists. Everyone's kind of shifted into conversation designers. And we did that because we kind of conducted some sort of research ourselves, or we kind of learned from one another. So in the end, we do have some skills, but we still do lack some crucial skills that an ideal, conversation designer is expected to have. So in order to kind of move forward, become experts, I think what we need to do is really have an open mind and adapt. So whether it is, to write more effectively, or maybe get better at understanding, the business objectives, or really know how to step into the shoes of a user and think from their perspective. Maybe you want to, dabble into a little bit of behavioral science. Maybe you want to, learn some new or popular tool, or you want to get better at client interactions, whichever skill it may be. I don't think, like, without the ability to expand and evolve, I think you'll just be tied down to the basics. So I think I would say adaptability.
And we also have Sakshi. She has some questions. Sakshi, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi everyone. I think it was a wonderful session so far, but I do have another question to highlight. So, as conversation designers, we do understand that AI has certain limitations, certain loopholes here and there, and we also understand that not everything is always technically possible. And since we're working on this for a while now, we also understand that this from a very from a very microscopic point of view. So how can we put this forward to a client who may come up with a very unreasonable requirement time and again? Because what they may perceive AI to be is completely different from what we look at it, right? And to them, AI is this, a huge innovation that has almost taken the world by storm, and there is very little scope for limitation. They look at it from a very high level perspective. So how can we kind of change that perspective and explain it in a very in a rightful manner?
Yeah, that's a very elaborative question. Anjali, why don't you continue answering Sakshi's question as well?
Okay, so I think a lot of us have been through this issue. So I think before we are introduced to the client, or we come into the picture, I think the client's first contact point would probably be your pre-sale sales teams. So I would say, partner up with them, make sure all of you guys are on the same page, and that's where the journey actually begins. So the expectations that need to be set right starts there. So if something is overpromised there, then these kind of issues, you're going to face it later on, months down the line, where you actually sit down with the client to design the solution and deliver it. So I would say nip it in the bud and just work with the pre-sales sales team.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, Anjali, what are the recommended tools for designing conversation experience?
Tools. Okay. I think I think it kind of varies from team to team, but I can speak from my team's experience. So we were highly dependent on the wonderful Bot Society, and much to our horror, it just out of the blue just became defunct earlier this year. And then, we all kind of just scrambled to find the right alternative, right? So when we were doing that, what we tried to focus on were the kind of features we were looking for in that tool. So what we wanted was like a scratch pad or a canvas tool that, was easy to learn if somebody was new to it. And also that would allow for very easy collaboration and also version control. Because I work with a lot of Indian clients who really want to change the designs every now and then. They have something to add, something new to that they, come up with. So this was very important to us. And we, we also have strict deadlines. So our projects are high velocity, projects majority of the times. So it has to be something that's really easy. We didn't want to use one tool for like, practice or canvassing, and then, like another tool to put everything together as a demo. So we did, do our research, and we ended up finding solace in draw.io and our own platform. So, the answer to why this worked or is working for us, I think it's more to do with the way we approach conversation design. So our team is really involved at the very beginning of the entire implementation, right? So we have a lot of collaborative design or discovery sessions with the client. So we need to factor in things like, possibility of multiple iterations, or we need to cater to, the customer's desire to be very collaborative, and also how tech savvy are they, right? So, we kind of decided draw.io was a very seamless and easy, awesome tool. And it's something that the developers were used to, the business analysts were used to, even a lot of the client teams, they were quite comfortable using that tool. So, once we have a proper vision as to how each journey is supposed to unfold, then what we do is use our own platform to kind of onboard our designs, because it's a low code platform and it's very easy to use. And then we just make minor tweaks. And it comes with a simulator, and we kind of just do a quick demo and then showcase our prototype to the customers. And because at the end of the day, they just want a taste of what is the end user getting. That's it.
Absolutely.
So this is what worked for us for both. For every kind of channel, chat, voice, everything.
Okay. Meenu, what is your take on this? What do you think is the most valuable skill to have in conversation design?
So the most valuable skill in conversation designing, in my opinion, would be the ability to see right through a use case. So of course, storytelling, language accuracy, etc., that will come with it, but it will not prove useful if you've not accounted for most, if not all, the potential paths the conversation could go in, right? If you come to think of it, this is one area where your overthinking will actually help you, right? As a CAD, one should have the ability to anticipate possible user responses and design for them. That extra effort that we take to design a default path at all points will definitely help the conversation flow more smoothly. So that's what I think, the ability to perceive the use case as a whole, and also when it comes to different channels, the ability to tweak the conversation based on the channel, that also becomes important. So mindfulness is key here, right? So for instance, you cannot convey an email address the same way we will do. I mean, in voice and chat, we will convey an email address differently. So in voice, you might want to spell it out. We might want to ask if they'd like to hear it, they'd like to hear the address again, or if they want to, if they want some time to note it down, right? Whereas in chat, you just need to display it once and it's always there. So you need to design accordingly, according to the model. So adaptability, like Anjali said, so tailoring it to suit the channel, that's a very crucial skill to have. Now, coming to the tools, like I mentioned, I design on Lucidchart, and I find it extremely convenient. I'm able to outline my thoughts very quickly and then flesh it out, and it's a great tool to get that first draft out. And I do this despite the channel, so I might have different tabs for voice, chat, Teams, or whatever. the channel. And I'm talking about the very first draft, right? The pre-demo stage. So after this design is logged in, we develop it on Amelia separately. We collaborate with the technical team, and then we develop it. We show them a demo. And yeah, so so for the clients, they'll need to know I mean, the points that see for the unhappy path, right? That's what the clients would be worried about. So if we show it to them, they're also convinced that okay, the bot will be able to perform well. So yes, so Lucid Chart works for me as a tool, and I advocate Lucid.
Yeah. We have Neha who also she has some question. Neha, why don't you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Thank you. Hey, everyone. My question is that a lot of times, as a conversation designer, you're working with the client and the company. You're designing this bot for them that will now finally be used by their customers or the end user. So you're thinking about both of these different audiences when designing. Does that ever become a challenge? And if so, how do you navigate that? And I'm thinking about this specifically wherein, let's say, a client, it's e-commerce, right? And they want to push sales, and your chatbot needs to help people navigate. While that's great and that's what the business is looking for, we will also, of course, think of that end user who doesn't want something pushed in their face and rather maybe wants to have gentle nudges to guide them through that buying journey. So, how do you navigate such challenges?
Yeah. Minu, do you want to answer this question? We can't hear you, Minu. At least I can't. Yeah, okay. Minu, are you still facing some problem?
I think Minu is not able
Yeah,
to
okay.
unmute.
Yeah, okay. Tias, can you answer this question, please?
The question by Neha or
Yes,
the one on screen?
by Neha, sorry.
Okay, sure. I think, okay, I kind of lost track of the question. Yeah, I'll just go to what Neha was asking. What are some of the challenges that are some in designing for multiple stakeholders, which will then be used by the end customer? How do you navigate them? Okay, yeah. So I think when you're designing for multiple stakeholders, right, you need to have in mind like who you're designing for again, right? That is your North Star. So if you're designing for a company which will later be used by their end users, so again you need to have a flexible design in place, right? You need to create a scenario where you are able to just customize it to a little bit, and then you can like they can take it forward to their customers. So the approach should be that your designs, when you know, if you have a forecast of it, will be really good, that will help you create a flexible path towards your design. If you don't have a forecast of it, try to make the tweaks or try to show certain areas or navigation that is solely catering to the larger target audience, which is not your customer anymore. Did I understand the question correctly? Or
Yes, yeah.
Okay. In the interest, okay. In the interest of time, I'm stepping in here. Sorry. We have run about 22 minutes over. We can probably stay for another 10 minutes. So maybe we can answer the questions that we have first in audience. I've also posted a link for the CXD India community that we've put for you. You can also ask the questions there. All our speakers will hopefully join the community and keep answering those questions. I can also answer the questions for you. So I would request that let's wrap up in the next 10 minutes so that, we can end the session thereafter. But back to you, Bhagyashree. And
Yeah.
sorry for butting in.
No, it was, yeah, that's okay. So should we take the next question right now? So what do you think is the better channel in India? Is it chat or voice? And why do you think so?
Okay, I will try to quickly wrap this up because, according to me, I don't think the choice of chat and voice depends on the particular demographic that you're catering to. According to me, the choice of chat and voice is the problem that you're solving. So if you are sitting in India solving for, let's say, a fintech company, right? And the particular use cases that you want to serve for that company, you check the criticality of those use cases. And based on that, you want to make the choice of chat and voice. Let's say a person does not always have their, let's say an insurance company, right? A person does not always have their policy number handy. On chat, typing it out would be easier than spelling it out on voice. So it might be an approach that you want to take where you're designing for that particular use case only on chat, right? And similarly, when you try to just book an appointment for a diagnostic center, right? You want a human touch, you want a human help, or you want to hear somebody, somewhere assisting or being empathetic towards you because you are in a sensitive situation, right? So at that point, maybe voice is a better option. So do not stick your path as to the demography that I'm working, because I'm sure after 2010, even our parents are using WhatsApp, right? So after 2010, WhatsApp and Facebook has made sure that all of us type sometime or the other. So you can't just say that only the younger generation will do chatbot and the older generation would do voice bot, right? So it depends on the use case that you're serving and the criticality of it. So take your decision based on that. To move to the next part, I would just try to wrap it up that the challenges involved in both the channels, right? One, to talk about chat, I would say that it is a little less personal in nature. Until and unless you're designing for WhatsApp, which is directly your phone number, if it is hosted on your website or it's hosted on an app or an integrated platform somewhere, you can't really be very personal to the user. You can't really call them, hi Bhagyashree, how are you doing today? You will probably say, dear customer, how are you doing today? Right? So there you are cutting down on the personalization bit. Or maybe just for personalization, you would ask the user to validate themselves, right? So that is an extra mile for the user. So I think the personalization part gets a little missed in chat. That is why I think Avani was also stressing, that is why we use a lot of visual things, right? Cards or emojis or buttons and things like that, which can engage people. A bigger challenge in voice, I would say, is the attention span of customers, right? Or end users. Because when you hear something, when you read something, you can always scroll up and go back to it. But when you hear something, it's done. It was that much only and it's done. So you have to grab the attention within 15 to 20 seconds max. You can't stagger a prompt more than that probably, right? So try to keep it short. Even if you have a larger information, take help of multimodal facilities if you have that leverage. If you don't break your information at every step, asking for an engaging question. Should we move ahead? Or would you like to know more? These kind of things, which is pulling in the user's attention somehow. So you're breaking down the challenges. So I think, yeah, that would be my take. Yes.
Yeah. Anjali, what do you say? Do you have any inputs in this? Quickly, can you?
Yeah. So I would say that, yeah, I don't think I can choose voice over chat or vice versa. I also think that it really depends on the use case and the user persona. In the interest of time, I think I probably just take, one small example. So, just keeping in mind that, we are a huge country, different cultures. We have, 22 main languages and so many other mother tongues, right? Which automatically sort of creates a very like an expansive and very target user base. So mapping that to the most popular industry use cases, like customer service, and banking, retail sectors. It's a challenge, and it's all about how do you make a very inclusive conversational experience in that case, right? So just for an example, let's say voice bot, right? Recognizing common slang terms and a manner of speech, it could be quite tricky. So I'm actually from Kerala, and the way someone speaks in, let's say, the district of Kasaragod up north would be completely different from, let's say, someone in Trivandrum, right? So capturing their intents or inputs, and for the SCT engine to then process the information, it could be troublesome, right? It could lead to errors. But any Malayali would definitely be able to understand the common dialect, right? So there's no trouble when it comes to users understanding the bot. So then we kind of think of, okay, maybe we should use DTMF, right? That'll come in handy to reduce the chance of error. And it'll help us keep the user on the happy path. And then that in turn provides a quicker, fruitful journey and then reduces the AHT. But these days, everyone is aware of human-like bots. Every business out there wants to have their own voice assistant that is completely conversational. So, then how do you reduce the chance of error if this is your target user persona, right? So these are the kind of challenges that we've also seen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anjali, and other speakers as well. I'll sadly have to reach this slide. I want to thank all of the speakers and the participants as well. I would request the question to be added on the group so that these experts would answer your questions and you'll get the answers on the group at the same time. So thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Let's keep in touch and continue
Thank you so much.
these kind of
Thank
sessions.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hi, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.